Astrology Roast. I think it needs to sound like a shitty intro, like a funny shitty intro.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Astrology Roast. My name is Karen.
And my name is Itai and we are back.
We most certainly are. Not that anyone out there would have had any shadow of a doubt that we would be coming back. We haven't forgotten you. It's been a little while between drinks. What can I say? Global pandemic, life, Venus retrograde finishing, life. But we're back and we're delighted to be with each other and with you again. Itai, as always, how's things been going? What's the update? What's the haps?
Oh my God, so much after the end of the retrogrades. No more retrogrades, no more eclipses. I don't know. I just feel like, and Mars is in Aries and it's Leo season. You know, I think we are the ones that coined the phrase "a spring in the butt." Definitely feeling a little bit of a spring in the butt recently.
Okay. Do you want to say more about that? Is that like a metaphor for something, or is it just you're just quoting yourself?
Well, I just think it's not a metaphor. It's like it's not. There's nothing sexual that is happening at the moment, but it's more of a just
an energy.
An energy, yes. And they released yet another picture of what Jesus would look like if he was alive. And obviously every time they release a new picture, he becomes more and more Middle Eastern looking, unlike the white Jesus we all learned to love. But the last picture that they released is like even more like cousin, like gives me more cousin vibes. And I just feel like I saw it and I just had our whole relationship. I experienced our whole relationship in my head. So maybe that's why I'm feeling a little bit like I had a spring in the butt because it was Jesus. It was Jesus's spring.
And so you're saying he looks like a hot cousin. And so there's a spring in the butt because, Jesus has become, more familial to you. Well, that's really nice to hear. It sounds like it's been a really active time on your side of the world.
On my mind.
In your mind. Well, the mind is a very vivid and sometimes it's the only place where we still have autonomy left. And we're going to speak a little bit more about that, the spaces where we have autonomy and freedom being extra crucial now and always. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but that's great. I'm happy that you have had a spring in the butt.
How are you?
Yes, we have. How am I? Well, I did feel like a bit of a shift when we moved into Leo season, started to get invitations for lockdown Leo events, which I'm really excited for. Really felt like it, Cancer season always does a bit of a number. Me and the water signs have a very fractured and sensual, erotic relationship. So I'm always kind of a bit relieved when we're back into kind of a fire or an air energy because it's where I'm a bit more comfortable and I know what's happening and what's what. Things have been pretty weird on this side of the world, so we kind of have less autonomy and less freedoms where I am in Melbourne. But, just trying to wade through that and still smile at people behind the face mask and hope that they feel that energetically. But I think, Leo season, we needed to kind of get there. I think we're still going to have a Mars retro that's coming soon in Aries, so we're not finished with retrograde season. But I know that Venus retrograde, there was just every single person I've ever been with in this world I was in contact with, or I was having dreams about people and all of these learnings and lessons that were unbearable the first time around were coming back again. So that was pretty interesting. And again, as you said, Itai, all in the mind. So the mind can be a prison. The mind can be a glorious, liberating, amazing place to be. So I'm hoping wherever everyone else is whilst listening to this, that you are with your mind and it's not a sad thing for you, but it's a cool thing. The other exciting thing that we have to announce is that me and Itai, as Astrology Roast, will be doing a very special live episode for the Festival of Jewish Arts and Music, FOJAM. So hopefully everyone out there can tune in. It's going to be live on Instagram. You can follow either the Astrology Roast Instagram or the FOJAM Instagram page, and we'll be streaming that live on Thursday the 30th at 8 p.m. So if you're in kind of a semi-lockdown situation like I am, hopefully you've got no other better things to do and you're bored and, you know, you've finished everything on Netflix. And if you've ever wondered, like, what do Karen and Itai look like? Does she actually need reading glasses or does she just wear them for kicks? Is Itai, you know, like he identifies as a man, but is he actually a man? Like, what's happening there? Well, this is your chance to find out and to see, you know, who we are superficially and not just our minds, our fractured minds that we live in at the moment. So hopefully you can all make it for that. We're very excited. We'll be talking all things astrology, intergenerational trauma. We'll be, you know, reflecting on how we can use a bit of resilience and self-care during these, you know, well, I keep saying these strange times, but I think generally life, this incarnation that we are in, the human life is always going to be strange. So it's stuff we always talk about.
Every time you say these strange times, I feel like you're just talking about, you know, from the second we were born until this very moment.
I don't know about the second I was born. I think even, you know, when we become an idea, like when you were implanted into your parents' body, like you just, everything's a bit weird. Like you're floating around in this jelly-like substance in this stomach of a person that has its own trauma history, that is trying to do their best, and that like so many things are paved for you before you've even popped out. So anyway, we won't be talking about that because that's a bit full on, but join us Thursday, 30th of July. We'd love to see people's little faces popping up so we feel like we're not alone in this world. So do tune in and follow the Instagrams, or we will be recording it as well. So if you can't make it then live, don't worry, we'll put it out into the ether for everyone else that doesn't want to come or has better things to do. So
but
very
definitely
exciting.
Come to the live because we want to see your comments, and
yes,
it's going to be fun.
And if you have questions that you want us to answer for the live episode, please send them in now or up until then, and we will really try and answer them. We're not, you know, astrologers, so to speak, but we are very happy to do our best to answer with the knowledge and wisdom that we have. So feel free to reach out, and we'd love to answer any of your questions if we can.
Yes. So, many people asked us to do this episode, and we already thought about doing it for a couple of times because the whole hashtag Free Brtney movement, or whatever you want to call it, started not recently. It's like it's been a few years that this is happening, but it has gained more like attention in the past 2 weeks for some reason. And we haven't really, like, we always spoke about Brtney on our podcast, obviously, because she's one of the most influential, one of the people that influenced the most about, I know, my life, and Karen, maybe in a way your life as well, after knowing me.
Yes, I would say, yes, definitely.
And we did have a picture and a quote from her hanging up at our house for a long while. Anyway, she is, the reason we haven't talked about it until now is because she always say like she wants privacy, and it seems like she doesn't really want people to talk about all of these issues. That's why we're going to talk about it today and we're going to try to do it like the least, I don't know what the right word to say about it. The least, I don't know, detailed or Snoopy or whatever it is.
Snoopy, I like Snoopy.
Snoopy, is that a word?
I don't know if it's a word. Like, I guess it could be a word, but I hear what you're saying. You don't want us to kind of be benefiting
snooping
or
around.
mocking her experience. Snooping around, yeah. We don't want to be snooping in her business.
Yeah, because it's her life. I think there's a big question that we will ask, which is like, when you become a celebrity, like how much of your life is your life and how much is others, like, and we're going to talk about it. But in general, I think our aim here today is, first of all, to just mostly, I think, be inspired from her and learn about and what we can take from her, from the way that she's experiencing her life. her strange times, as we call life.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I think, I unlike you, Itai, who, you've been really following and inspired and connected to the story of Britney Spears for so long and in such a real and deep way. But I am much more new to the party. And since knowing you, you really opened my eyes up to the kind of charisma and curiosity and intrigue and talent that Britney Spears has. And, before that, I would have heard a lot of the mocking and the accusations and the derogatory way that people speak about Britney Spears, like, oh, she doesn't sing her own songs or she can't dance and all these things. And the more that I've learned about her through your eyes is how much of an incredible powerhouse she is, this interesting, amazing space she holds in so many people's hearts. And of course, in the LGBTQI community, she has a very special place. And this intrigue that, even though she's no longer maybe in the limelight like she was back in our day, which is, not that long ago, obviously we're still young in heart, but, she still kind of captures the media attention. She still kind of has this thing about her where people want to rip her to shreds and they want to just find out everything about her and bring her down. And she isn't Sagittarius, so I always think about her as the truest Sagittarius who just wants freedom, who just wants to be able to not be restricted. And for Britney, the freedoms that she's craved has always been quite simple, quite, let me drive my own car, let me walk down the street, let me just dance freely without being controlled. So the more I have known about her, the more I see her as certainly not a victim, because as you were saying, we don't want to tell a story for her, in our words, not in her words, because enough people are doing that for her, but as a survivor of something pretty extraordinary and someone that is pretty freaking inspiring. Whatever you think about her music, whatever you think about her work, which actually I love, I'm a big fan of Glory, most recent album, but there's something about her that makes people feel something or provokes a response in a lot of people. It's not just like a normal celebrity, I would say.
Yeah. And if anything, like, you remind me, that's the thing also when you talk about Britney and you have to like put all these, like, whether you like her music, whether you like her this, and it reminds me of a conversation I had literally yesterday when someone was talking to me about Gal Gadot, and they were saying how people are saying that she is successful because she's hot, because she's beautiful. And that's the only, she's like, yeah, like, she's not a good actress, she's just hot, that's why. And it pisses me off every time someone does that, because you always hear that about women, like Kim Kardashian, Gal Gadot, Britney, like, oh, she's not talented, she was just hot, like she never had a good voice, she doesn't know how to act. I'm like, there's so many hot people in the world, and not all of them have sold 100 million copies of albums. Like, there's so many hot people in the world, and not all of them got to play Wonder Woman. Not all of them got to make a cosmetic line that is not so successful. Like, and people feel so comfortable reducing a person's work into their looks. It's just so insane. And also the fact that, of course, it will always be about a woman. Like, I never heard anyone saying about the Hemsworth brothers, like, that are playing also Thor and all the superheroes, like, oh, they only got the job because they're hot. Like, people say they're hot, but they're not saying they only got the job because they're hot and they don't know how to act. Even though, like, I would say their acting skills is just as good as Gal Gadot. It's like,
that's so true.
So, and I think with Britney, it's also always been the case. Like, she's a puppet. She's just coming to the studio. They tell her what to do. And when you look at her chart and you see that there, like, it couldn't be more opposite, because she's a Sagittarius, Aquarius moon, Libra rising. She has like this Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn. She like has placements of someone that doesn't let people like tell them what to do. Like Aquarius moon, Sagittarius sun, Venus Capricorn is like, I'm the boss, and you don't have to go so like she's been always vocal about it, like about putting her own ideas and doing whatever she wants and being comfortable in her body or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying, of course, she has, been playing along with the beauty model and image and helped shape, people want to be skinny, myself included, like that stomach from Slave for You. Of course, I wanted that. But in her world, she's always been, she has interviews from 1999 where people telling her she's too sexual, and she says, why when the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC are thrusting on top of their microphones, like no one's saying anything. So she has been someone that always wanted her liberty and her freedom in that sense.
Oh, it's so interesting that I imagine if she had been popular during this time now, I'm sure she still would have been the recipient of all of that criticism and all of that slut shaming and just all of the yuckiness that she's experienced. But I think that this would have been a more comfortable space for her to express herself in. I think she really came to popularity at a time when people were just, she was enormous and people didn't know what to do with it. And so they just had to bring her down. But I'm wondering, Itai, why do you think now of all the times the movement around Free Britney, and maybe you can speak a little bit about what the Free Britney movement means, but why do you think that it's coming to a head at this moment in time now?
Well, first of all, I think the sad reason that it's coming to a head right now, I think it's literally just because it just came to someone's attention and it's a cool topic for the next few weeks. And I'm pretty sure in 2 weeks' time, no one will remember that because it has been the same situation in the past 13 years. So there's nothing here that's happening right now. Maybe, a few letters that have leaked and a TikTok hashtag that got big, but I honestly don't think that there's anything really to it at the moment. I think it's just a trend to know about it and to care about it. And that's like just the sad truth about, I think, the way we consume media, and think about the fact that there's so many bigger issues, societal issues right now that are burning, but, they are not in the center of everyone's attention. And I think the same with Britney, just like trendy for the next few weeks, and it's going to disappear. And then she'll just, the people that care about it will be in on it. The people that don't will be, will move on to something else. And if you think about it, like we've been obsessed with her Instagram in the past 5 years at least. And it's just the same. Like there's nothing really. And then now people are coming up to me. It's like, oh my God, you have to see the Britney Instagram. And I'm like, this is the way it's been for the past 5 years. Like it's almost offensive when people suggest I look at her Instagram.
Sometimes I see something and I do want to send it to you. And I'm like, why? Why do you need to send it to him? He's already seen it. He's already liked it. He already knows about it. But
no, it's just, but there's this shared experience of like,
yes,
I want you to know I watched it and felt something, and I know you also did. And I think we should do that. We should send things that we know the other person has seen.
Yeah, I think we should. And look, I have defended Britney since knowing you. I have had almost screaming fights with people that I work with, friends, everyone. When they kind of have tried to bring her down, I've become very defensive and very like, well, like she's actually really inspiring. Like I shared one of her Instagram posts recently on my Instagram, and like no one follows me, so it's not as if I'm like a big deal anyway, but I posted it and some people wrote back to me saying, oh my God, it's so sad. And it was just a video of her dancing. It might have been the video of her talking when her gym burnt down. I can't remember, but it was, for me, like I posted it because it gives me a smile. It's light. It's joyful to watch someone dancing freely and doing their own thing. It's quirky. It's unusual. I feel like it's the Aquarius part of Britney as well. And it's also the Sag part that's like, I give zero fucks and I'm going to do this whether you slam me for it or not. But yeah, people wrote back saying, oh, it's so sad. And they sent me links to like the Free Britney thing. And I'm like, yes, like there are sad things that have happened to Britney, and there is a whole realm of internet, information. And I'm sure a lot of it is probably true, but there's a lot of terrible stuff and there's a lot of stuff there. But she's not just this victim, and she's not just this joke, and she's not just this puppet at all. Like she, as you're saying, like she's sold millions upon millions of records, and it's almost like all of that is kind of erased because of things. And like everything is through sympathy, through the eyes of sympathy. Like, oh, she's posted this thing, she must be unwell, or she's posted this and she's being controlled. And like maybe those things may or may not be true, but she's also, I feel inspired when I see some of those things. It gives me a smile. It feels authentic. It feels refreshing. It feels like someone of her generation who doesn't quite understand how to use the internet, which gives me a smile as well when she posts like the blurry pictures or the stock images of roses. Like it's delightful. And usually when I've told people to follow her, like I'm always at pains to say, a little bit around how great she is, because it can become a mocking thing, like, lol, follow her Instagram, it's so great, she's so this.
Yes.
And it's like, no, like don't follow it because we're going to mock her. Follow it because it's fun, it's interesting. And I follow a lot of different celebrities for different reasons, but I have to say, like, hers is the only one where it's actually intriguing and it's interesting. And she posts like very unusual things, and it's almost like a stream of consciousness discussion around. It's like quite endearing. Like it's not, it's something that your mum or your mum's sister would write on Instagram that you always check it because you think it's great. And I don't know.
You know what it reminds me of? It's like when you make fun of your family.
Yes, which is often.
Someone would do that. Yeah. But then when someone would do that, and you'll be like,
and you would,
how, like, what the fuck did you just say?
Dare you? Oh my God. I've done that many times when someone said something and I'd be like, no, excuse, like
you cannot
just
say
tear
that.
them to shreds. You cannot say that.
I know it's crazy because like obviously she's not my family, but I think that
when
you're like a fan, like a hardcore fan, and you know that when you make fun of like the person you admire is because your love for them and your appreciation for them is so strong that like you allow yourself to have to, like, when I just started, like in the early 2000s, like we couldn't say anything negative about Britney because it was like, no, she's the idol. Like there's nothing wrong. There's nothing that she could do like bad. Now I look back and I'm like, Lucky is the worst song. Like Lucky is a horrible song. But then I was like, no, it's deep, it's meaningful. But now it's like, yes, I love like laughing from her and also see the funny things about her, but because there's this love. And then when someone else is doing that, I'm like, you don't understand. Like you don't, but then obviously it's just like being a crazy fan.
And what is it about Britney for you, Itai? Because she has been such a huge part of your coming of age, of your personhood. What is it about her that is so special for you? What, if you could sum it up?
Well, you can't. I think it came up like earlier on this podcast, but and on other people's experience as well that I talk to, I think that it all comes down to that Sag energy of really being comfortable with who you are. And now we look back, and I think now, thanks to Britney and thanks to Janet Jackson and people that have paid the price of being a sexual woman. And I know like even you can look at their sexuality and say like, oh, it's like male gaze sexuality and it's very specific. But I still think that they always been comfortable and saying that they're like being vocal about being comfortable with the things that they do. And I think when you're like in the closet or when you're living a life that is not comfortable, you recognize people where they do things that they love and where they do things that they don't want to apologize for, and then you are drawn to it. And I think she always had that sense of like, I'm just gonna be the best. I'm gonna dance the best that I can. I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna Yeah, and you believe her, the camera's on, she's doing like the video, her video face, and you just believe whatever she's doing. And I think that's
and there's the same kind of joy in her videos that are filmed in her living room of her doing the runway walks with it's the same sense of excitement and titillation of like almost like a little girl who was trying on clothes would feel so excited. And I feel that like Brtney has always had the mixture of innocence with I've seen it all energy, which I also associate with Sagittarius energy as well. Like I've seen it, I've been there, I've seen the dark side, but there is still this optimism and this hope. And Sagittarius, as much as it's known for being blunt and in your face and saying the things that people don't want to hear or aren't ready to digest, the Sagittarius energy is also about abundance and optimism and going forth and going forward. And I feel that energy from Brtney, even in her songs where there is a sense of sadness. Like when I think of the song Every Time, I think that was for me the moment when I started to develop a deeper respect for her was when you told me, oh, she actually wrote that. And I was like, oh, no, she didn't, whatever. And you were like, no, she wrote that song. And I remember hearing that song and hearing it for the first time thinking, wow, that's such a beautiful structure of a song. It's really, I downloaded it on my mini disc and all that. And I wasn't a pop fan and I wasn't into that kind of stuff, but I just loved that song. And I was like, as you were saying, like these celebrities, when we try and reduce them to, they're just their looks or they're just their sexuality or they're just this, like, it's like a small piece of information like that. It reminds you that there's so much that they have to offer. But with that song particularly, there was sadness in it, but there's innocence and there's hope.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what I get from her Instagram. It's what I get from her music. And there is a sexuality about it too. There is a kind of there's a power to her music as well. I feel like it's pretty real. Like it doesn't feel. I'm sure a lot of it's performative, as being a performer, there's parts of that, but there's something that's really wild, even in the way that she dances or in the way that she sings or expresses herself, there's a wildness to it. And I think that's scary. That's scary for people. And when we think about the male gaze or we think about shutting people down, it's like we don't want women to be wild and powerful and in control. We want to just squish them down,
like it's so much easier to look at her music and videos and just like take all of the responsibility, like assume she has nothing to do with it. Like it makes more sense in our mind that she has nothing to do with like the quality of the things that she's done. Okay, so what is the Free Brtney movement? We're gonna try to give it as plain as simple like facts that there are about it. Technically, we know if you've been alive in 2007, Brtney was on the news every single day. I remember being a fan there, was like literally waking up every day and checking whether she's still alive. Like that's how bad it was. I remember there were websites that were like people would put money and like bet on if Brtney will survive the year, like, and people would literally like place a bet on the day that she would die. Like that's how people viewed her. God. And that was the same for Lindsay Lohan, I think, that year. I remember it was like very similar.
Look, and it's a very similar storyline to Whitney Houston's film with Kevin Costner, The Bodyguard. So I don't know if it's a freakishly prescient film, but The Bodyguard is a fantastic film which shows you about celebrity. Like, it's so scary for them. They need a Kevin Costner, as their bodyguard because people are stalking. Anyway, go on. Keep on going.
Well, Brtney never had a Kevin Costner. She always had like a Kevin Federline.
Yeah, fuck. They got it so close. So close.
So close. But if anything that's like different for me, at least in 2007, I would be like a closeted gay that had to go through it, like through the fear of losing Britney Spears by myself. And today it's like every day someone would like message me like, hey, how is it going with Britney? And like, as if it's like my personal tragedy. And I'm like, thank you. It's really different than 13 years ago.
Oh, you were so alone. So alone.
I know. It's all about me.
And you didn't even have the internet at that stage to check these things on.
It would be literally on the newspaper. Like there was the internet, but it was, wasn't the kingdom that we are living in right now. Basically, since then, and I'm not going to go into like the dates and the details and how many times everything happened, but she went into like a mental health facility for evaluation. One thing led to another, and she's been under a conservatorship under her dad. Like her dad is her conservator, whatever the word is. And for the past 13 years, she basically doesn't have the right to vote, doesn't have the right to drive her car freely, to be on the internet and speak on the phone, control her money, her assets. It's all under someone else's, like her dad and a team that is in charge of it. And the biggest question from it is that this conservatorship is something that for an adult to be on for more than like 48 hours is unheard of. Like there's no cases like that. And people are asking like, and there's obviously so many more details and leaked documents and leaked letters and lawyers that have quit that are now speaking up, like things that make it all seem like her dad and her family or like the people around her are benefiting from that situation and making money off of it. And then you have Brtney, who is like either dropping hints on Instagram or saying I'm fine, and she gives like all these mixed messages, and then people are like, what the fuck is happening? And I think now people are speaking up to try and know more.
And given that there's been so much media hype and attention around the Free Brtney movement, as it's called, for so long, and so much scrutiny around her movement and her presentation on the internet and all of that, how do you think we can be helpful, and how can we talk about what's happening in a respectful way without sensationalizing this? Because it's interesting, as you're saying, it kind of pops up like a pimple, like it just pops up every now and then it dies down. And I would imagine, given that you're someone that's such a huge fan and she's been so important in your life, like it would be so frustrating to hear everyone talk about this all the time, but also you'd be concerned, like, is this, what can we do? Is she okay? And I guess how can we talk about this in a constructive and helpful way and not sensationalize her experience and kind of take away her story again?
Oh, it's such a good question. And I think it's really hard to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for this question. It's hard. I don't know, because on one hand, I'm like, and it makes me think of Kanye as well, and of how these celebrities, and even Mariah Carey, 2001, when she was like also going through some things, and Amanda Bynes, and there's all these stories, and especially now when like someone goes through something like this and they put it on the internet, and then a second later it becomes a meme, or it becomes something that we screenshot and send each other. And then you ask yourself, wait, but on one hand, when they release a song and I'm sharing it, or when they release a video, or when they release something that they want, like they tweeted that, like they wanted this to be spread around, or they posted this video. So if I'm making it a meme, like, how Brtney like twirling around, and then someone made a meme of it, of like my food in the microwave, and it's like just Brtney like voice.
And it is so funny though.
And
what can you do?
Funny. And it's like, is it disrespectful? I don't know, because it's like I'm literally asking without an answer. But I think in a way, maybe it's the way you talk about it. Like if you just talk about it in a sense of, she's crazy, she's losing it, she's insane, like, then maybe that's just like you're kind of like getting off the fact that she's going through something. It's almost like you're like it's like, it's like porn. You're like watching someone and you get it, you get a kick out of it. But then because it's on the internet and like everything on the internet, like it's not like you can just block it or not participate. But yeah, I think some people are making sure to use different language and I know there's so many Brtney fans that are posting about her resilience. And that's also super sad thing of like the thing you said about her optimism, and so many people that are saying like she fucking survived all of this and she's fucking been under a conservatorship for 13 years and she's happy and she's smiling and she's dancing and she's doing yoga. And it's like, she is resilient. Like she's been literally like on the public eye, and not just like a pleasant celebrity way, but in a, people have fucking like, when right before she came on stage in 2007 in the infamous Gimme More, performance, and Sarah Silverman was opening with like she literally was the person right before Brtney talking about how she is a bad mother and like how she probably forgot her kids at home or something like that. And then she had to come up and perform like a minute later. And I think that this night and like the Super Bowl with Janet Jackson, like I always think about how in our society narrative, Janet Jackson was in the wrong, Brtney was like a mess. And now people are looking back on both of these nights and saying like, fuck, we messed up. Like we treated them badly.
But do you think it would be different? Like I just feel like it wouldn't, like in those scenarios, there's no way that either of those celebrities could have won. It was pitted against them, odds were stacked against them. If they talked about it, they were slammed and they were shamed. If they don't say anything, then they said they're being silent. Like I actually think to the most recent series of The Bachelor, which I was obsessed with, the Australian Bachelor. I'm sorry to anyone that's not listening from Australia, but the runner-up for the Australia Bachelor, Gemini, of course, she came second, and she was like 24 or 23, and she was obviously vilified and slut-shamed from the get-go. Very outspoken, talkative, confident, kind of, not playing the kind of, passive character. She's very woke. She's very open about enjoying and loving sex, and about her kind of battles with mental health in the past. She runs a podcast, or she hosts a podcast now called It's a Lot, which is, she talks really quite vocally about, sex and women's stuff and mental health, but really, really interesting to watch her commentary on how she was treated as a woman on that show. And again, a lot of people be like, it's, they sign up for it and they know what they're getting into, and they're all just fame whores and they just want to get likes on Instagram. And, I'm sure people, as with anything, go into things hoping to benefit from something. There's nothing wrong with that. But the behavior of the media towards these women and the kind of cliched, old school, traditional tropes that they face, like for me, it feels like nothing's changed. It's still, she's called crazy. She's called manipulative. She's called a slut because she says to him after being on 50 dates with him, like, and also being locked away, because in the Australian Bachelor, they're locked away from society. They're not given their phones and they're shoved in a shitty house with 10 other women and filmed for 24 hours. Like, of course they sign up for that to an extent, but like, of course, in that scenario, she wants to have sex. Like, she's a bit horny. Like, that's okay. But the fact that she says that means that she's sex hungry and she's crazy. But him, as a guy that's dating 12 women, of course he's in it for the right reasons, and, he's this good guy. And like, it's so clear. And like, people were like, well, if you get involved in the Bachelor franchise, which is an inherently kind of sexist franchise, then how can you then play the victim, which I don't think she's playing. But it's like this kind of way that we treat women in the media, it hasn't changed one bit. And, I wish that Janet and Brtney paved the way for an easier path. But I mean, even our former Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, when asked recently on on a show called Q&A. It was like, what advice would you give to young women? And she didn't mince her words at all. She's like, listen, it's hard and there's criticism. Like I wish it wasn't that, but it is. And she wasn't saying like, oh, it was when I was Prime Minister. Right now, just by being a woman, you're controversial. And, you know, even as you were saying, like just because they were quote unquote sexual women, and I don't even know what that means to be a quote unquote sexual woman. I think it's just to be a human being. But we tack these two words together, and I don't know. We keep seeing it again and again, and I know a lot of other more intelligent people have a lot to say about this. But
you're a Gemini, you're intelligent.
No, we just talk.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Like, it's fucked up. I think that the fact that we can look to her and see more than just the funny videos, like it's just about, I think if you see the videos and you think it's funny, it's true, it's funny, like literally. And I think she knows it's funny because she's...
Oh, they make me so happy though. They make me so happy when some of those ones where she's riding a bike or when she's doing the twirls and the dancing. And it's so joyful. It's so joyful.
But then if you just see like a step further and you're like, it's funny, but it's also like more complex, and it's also like a story of someone that is resilient, and it's a story of someone that is like here to teach us some things, and it's a story about someone that's like maybe lost control about certain things but has control in other things, and to me it also takes me to the whole story of your rising sign and ascendant sign, and it's going to be a stretch, but I also feel like, you know how we all have a role in our friend group or in our family or in our house. And, you know, we're almost like there's a stage where we just become our role. Like if you're the person that always picks up the phone when someone calls, you start feeling like, what happens if I don't pick up the phone when a friend calls? Like I have to pick up. That's my role. And then your character, it's almost like you every day you get up on stage and your character has the position and the lines, and you can't break character, because if you break your character, then the other characters will be like, wait, what the fuck? Like this isn't how it's supposed to be. Like, and you know, when you go to a festival and you become a little bit more spiritual for that weekend and you come back home and you're like, how am I going to implement this without
I've never experienced that. That's where you've lost me. I just go straight to the cafe or the food truck and I just sit there in my same clothes that I would wear any day, and I hate it, and then I go home.
It's like you're exposed to something that you feel like maybe it will change your actions, and then people will react. And I think with Brtney, and obviously I'm narrowing the whole story down to get it related to astrology for a second. But if Brtney's rising sign, which is Libra, and it's like this, you know, approachable, beautiful, easy to digest kind of rising sign, like Venus, very, very diplomatic, strive for harmony. And she's always obviously been like that. Everyone that work with her is always saying like she's the sweetest girl. She's so good to work with. She's so nice. She cares about you. That's Libra rising, like to a T. But then when she isn't acting like that, the world is like, what the fuck? Like, you know, Brtney gone mad, and American Sweetheart, and the tragedy and everything. And it takes me, and I'm saying that because you asked like, how do we interact with that? And I think there's something to learn from her also about that, about how to be okay to do things that are not expected of you, or to not be narrowed down to that rising sign or to that exterior shell that you have, that maybe, you know, there's other parts of you that contradict it, and that's also okay for you to show them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so emotional. I want to ask permission. I know it's always a lot when someone reads a quote. So, you know, people might want to kind of go and wash the dishes if they're listening to this. But I want to read a quote of hers that really sums up her for me. And I think it's from Off the Record or For the Record. Is it Off the Record or For the Record?
For the record.
For the Record, which I highly recommend. It's free to watch on YouTube. I think it's got Spanish subtitles, but other than that, it's free to watch, and it feels like a very, very authentic look. You know, if we could ever have an authentic insight into what's happened for Brtney, but go look at it, because it shows both of the kind of all of that complexity that we just tried to kind of describe about how she incorporates innocence, but also great power and creativity and vulnerability and all of these things, because she's a human being. But one of the quotes that I saw that she says, which I think is good information for us when we think about how we can talk about Brtney respectfully, she says, "I'm really not interested in pity. I have no need for it. What I could use from people is some understanding, and a little privacy, and just a day off would be nice." So yes. I think I mean, she might have changed her tune, but I think that, you know, I think when we as well say, you know, she's a victim and poor Brtney and we need to free her, we also take away her agency. We also take away her freedom and her voice and her story, and I don't think that serves as well by putting someone as either bad or a victim of society. It's more complex than that. So
for sure,
I don't know if that's this discussion has added to the story or sensationalized it further, but I hope from it people at least took the inspiring parts about Brtney Spears, you know, the stuff that moves people when they watch her shows or her Instagram or her dancing. Like, there's more to this woman. There's more to this story.
For sure. And if you came to hear all the details, like, there is so many threads on Twitter, on Instagram, that like go date by date and, you know, explain the whole story. We really wanted to, as you said, just like focus on other things and remind people that there's a actual person there that we love and care about. And other than that, we will see you on Thursday, hopefully. Thursday the 30th. Is that the date? The 30th of July?
That is the date. I will be wearing glasses. So I'd love for everyone to tune in to that, because that's a bold move. It's very bold. It's very serious, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a really fun episode. But yes, Thursday, 30th, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. It will be on our Instagram, so at Astrology Roast. It will not be on Atai's new podcast Instagram, because we will not speak your new podcast name, because, you know, there's still some sensitivities around that. But yes, Atai has a new podcast. He's been cheating on me with another podcast. It's fantastic. It's in Hebrew, so go listen to it if you speak Hebrew. But otherwise, tune in Thursday 8. I don't know what time it will be in Israel time, so I don't know that. The US, I don't know. I'm not even sure.
Here's a task. If you would like to come and watch us, then check what's the equivalent of 8 p.m. in Australia for you and in your home country, and tune in to our Instagram Astrology Roast. Other than that, thank you for being here on another episode of Astrology Roast.